Hi, my name is Ruth. I'm 19. I'm from South London, but I study in Bristol and I identify as a non-binary lesbian. I grew up in a very Christian household, and that really sort of impacted how I grew up and the views I formed. So I started off being very ignorant of LGBT people. It sounds really silly, but I didn't actually know they existed, to the point where we got given a questionnaire when I was at primary school. So it was like, would you feel comfortable having a gay teacher? And genuinely, I didn't know what gay was. So I just asked my friend next to me, like, oh, okay, what's a gay person? Like, what is that? And they sort of said, oh, that's someone that's wrong and a bit disgusting. So that was sort of the first time I'd ever heard about an LGBT person, and that was sort of what I took away from it. And then I went home and was like, hi, mum. So I heard about a gay person, like, what is a gay person? And she pretty much said the same thing. She said they go against God, they're wrong, they're disgusting. I personally find them abhorrent. That was what I took away. And as a child, I think you start off as a blank canvas and you sort of absorb ideas from the people around you, the people who you grew up with. And that was my first takeaway. And then every time I went to church, whenever gay/LGBT issues came up, it was always the same thing, like gay people, trans people, bi people, that they're all wrong to God. So genuinely, that formed what I'd say is homophobic views when I was a kid. And that was never challenged when I was at primary school. So when I was at primary school, the word gay was a slur. If anyone had done something wrong, it's like, oh, you're so gay and all of that. So it's sort of my homophobic views were allowed to stay within me unchallenged. And then, it was sort of amplified by church, by the young people in the church, all having the same views as me. But then I went to secondary school, and you meet a wider range of people. People are older, people are starting to find themselves. And so my friend came out as bisexual, and I felt, because of my beliefs that had been sort of forced into me as a kid, I felt very uncomfortable. I never outwardly judged them, and I'm very thankful for that, but internally I sort of felt this was wrong and was judging them. Like, I felt very prejudiced, lots of prejudice towards them, which I know is wrong. But then a lot more of my friends started coming out, started discovering their gender, discovering their sexuality as you grow up, as you do when you grow up. I started to feel my views started to be sort of challenged by sort of them being who they were. And some of them started to question me because they knew I'd grown up in a very Christian household, sort of saying like, okay, so you're Christian, therefore you must not be okay with my identity. And I was like, well, yeah, that's what I've been told. God says it's wrong. And through them questioning me, I came to the conclusion that these beliefs are not my own. These beliefs are what I'd sort of picked up from my environment. And then I sort of had a moment of realization and began to sort of think and go, no, I actually want to form my own belief. And then from that point onwards, I was like, I don't care what anyone says. I don't care if you're gay. Gay people are amazing. There's nothing wrong about them. How can God think they're wrong? And that was sort of a moment where I changed. And my externalized homophobia stopped. And I'm very thankful for that. But because of the environment and because it's been sort of drummed into me from a very young age, I still had leftover internalized homophobia. I didn't realize that, in my church, whenever gay people were like cast in church, I would sort of stand up and be like, no, it's wrong. Like, God says love everyone. But when I was 15, I realized I was gay. And then it sort of hit me that I couldn't deal with me being gay. I didn't care how other people identified, but when it came to myself, I couldn't be gay, and I hated the fact I was gay because my environment led to that, and it was so hard for me to let go of my internalized homophobia. And now I say I'm very proud to be gay. I'm very happy that I'm gay, and I feel very comfortable in myself, but it took a very long time for me to get to that stage, because it's not just a belief that you've come to thinking for yourself. It's your entire environment and the belief that has been given to you from a very young age, and I just found it really hard to let go of that. And I'd say it just sort of shows that environment is so important. An LGBT person can grow up in a homophobic background and end up being homophobic, and that can have a long-lasting impact on their own mental health and how they feel towards themselves. Yeah, I'd say I now recognise the importance of having a really sort of growing up in a really accepting environment, and I just wish I had that. So I've experienced both negative and positive treatment from Christian people to do with my LGBT identity. I think my experiences started off quite negative. It just seemed like it was all negative. Everyone in my church sort of hated gay people, sort of said, gay people are wrong, they go against what we believe, which kind of really hurt me every time I came out. And I always felt within myself, when I was at that church, I felt really uncomfortable, and it sort of led to me having panic attacks sometimes just because I was so paranoid they'd find out and hate who I was. And that was, I guess, the overarching negative experience I had. I also went to a Church of England school for secondary school, and they were very proud of their very strong Christian ethos. And we tried to set up a safe space for LGBT students because we thought that was needed. We had a feminist society, we had a diversity society, but we had nothing for like LGBT students. So we tried to go and set that up, and we came across like lots and lots of opposition from teachers. They sort of said, oh, this goes against our Christian ethos. We'll have parents writing in, complaining, saying that we're giving their kids like deviant views and things like that. So we came across a lot of difficulty, and it left a lot of us, including myself, feeling very sort of left out, and like the school didn't value my identity. Like very recently, I've started having lots more positive experiences, which has showed me that, you know, religion isn't a negative thing, it's an ultimately positive thing. It's just some people who can kind of like tar that for you. So I was at London Pride this summer, which was really amazing. And I was just standing watching the march go by. And there was this group called Christians at Pride, and they were holding these banners. It's really touched me. So something like, God loves gays, we're sorry for how the church has treated you. And that's something that really hit me, because the church had always made me feel so inadequate in myself. And then there were these Christians who were just spreading love. Some of them were LGBT, some of them were just allies, but they were there saying, you know, everyone is welcome, everyone is accepted, everyone is loved. And that had a really powerful impact on me. Also, one of my best friends at secondary school grew up in a Quaker family, so kind of different version of Christianity. And they came out as non-binary to their family, and their parents was like, okay, we love you, like you are who you are, you're amazing. What stuck with me is the fact that they were just so accepting and so loving, and you know, they straight away tried to use the right pronouns, tried to use their chosen name, and it was absolutely amazing to see. And then every time I came round, they would always be really accepting of me for who I was, and I think that was something really, really powerful. And also the fact that most of the young Christians I've been with, I've chatted to, are so accepting and will sort of fight for the rights of LGBT people. So at school, when we were trying to set up this support group, Christian students stood with us. They were either Christian LGBT students or just Christian allies, and they petitioned the head teacher to get us this safe space. There were these people still standing up for us, you know, Christians being absolutely amazing and treating LGBT people so well. Religion, in my opinion, is all about love, and it's just sad that a lot of people have only had negative experiences where there are so many other loving Christians out there. So personally, I think being LGBT is a really amazing thing, and I'm really proud of that. One of the things that makes me really proud of being LGBT is our rich and radical history. We came from a place where being LGBT wasn't accepted at all, to like winning things like gay marriage. And we've got so much further to go, but it's sort of that activist history that really ignites something in me. So starting with the Stonewall riots, which was like led by trans women of color, I think is really powerful. And then having Pride as a protest, sort of unashamedly walking through the streets saying, we are who we are, if you don't like it, you can go away. And sort of giving ourselves that visibility, but sort of standing up against all this animosity. You know, people had trouble with the police, people were put in prison for being gay, but still they sort of kept going. And I think it's that really inspired me. Something that I really love is watching the film Pride. So it's about the miners' strikes in, I think it's the 1980s, whenever Thatcher was in power. And there was this group of sort of left-wing LGBT people who set up this group called Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners. They went out on London streets, shaking buckets, collecting money. And they faced so much homophobia. They phoned up loads and loads of like miners' union branches and got told, go away because you're LGBT, we don't want to hear from you. And then they ended up joining with this Welsh mining group, and they faced so much adversity because from the people were like sort of from a rural place, they didn't I don't think they'd ever seen an LGBT person before, or didn't know they'd ever seen an LGBT person before. But the fact is they formed like this really beautiful community. It was so radical and so powerful, and it really touched me and made me think, we've got a really rich history as LGBT people. We've got so much to be proud of. People before us have worked so hard to get to where we've got, and that inspired me to sort of keep fighting, keep being visible as an LGBT person. Another thing is being LGBT, I think, has made me a much more resilient person. It's been quite a struggle to accept myself and then to come out. And through facing all of these problems from my church, from my friends, from my family, from fearing rejection, but getting through that, I know I've got through that. I know I've got through some of the hardest things in my life. So it sort of made me much stronger. And I know if anything else comes, I've dealt with things probably much harder than that. So I feel like it has made me a much stronger person, which I think's really good. So one of the things that I find makes me really proud to be LGBT is I feel I can challenge society much more. In being LGBT, you're intrinsically outside of societal norms. Societal norms are inherently cisgender, heterosexual. They're very based around a gender binary and sort of a nuclear family, which involves a husband and a wife and 3 kids or something like that. And yeah, I don't fit into that society. And I find there's so much wrong with society. There's so much hatred in society. Because I feel outside of what is accepted, I feel that I can speak out much more. I'm not bound so much by sort of society's rigid boundaries. I feel that I am more able to use my voice because I don't feel restrained by society so much. Yeah, and I think that if I wasn't LGBT, I wouldn't be as good an activist. I wouldn't have faced all the oppressions that I had, and I wouldn't be able to speak out against them as much as I can now. So I always found it quite hard to accept myself as an LGBT person. I faced a lot of homophobia, which made it really difficult. But there were certain moments and certain experiences that made me realise that being gay is actually something to be proud of. It was through LGBT representation in the media and on TV. So, for example, just going to bring it out here, Call the Midwife. There was a lesbian couple in Call the Midwife, and it's set in the 1960s. It's about women giving birth in the east end of London, but that's not really the important bit. There was a lesbian couple there, having to hide themselves away, hearing all these people use slurs against gay people, and seeing people facing imprisonment, facing court trials. It was really difficult, but still they managed to stay together and be really proud and unashamed of who they were, even though they had to hide because of legal reasons. When they were together, it was really powerful and really beautiful, and it just had a huge impact on me and made me sort of realize that it can't be wrong. It looks so natural, it flows so naturally, and if it's something that people are prepared to fight for and prepared to be proud of, then that's something that I should try and do myself. And there's also this other web series called Carmilla, which is it's pretty much led, produced, acted by LGBT people, and I think pretty much all the characters are LGBT. And it was just so normal. It wasn't even a conversation topic. It was just, yeah, so we're LGBT, this is great, isn't it? And they went out fighting supernatural beings and things like that. And it's the fact that it was so normal. It was just a part of their day. It wasn't, there was no dramatic coming out or anything. It sort of hit me and was like, okay, yeah, so this is just a normal thing. I don't know why everyone's making it such a big thing. So I sort of started to normalize it more to myself, which was really good. And then when I got my first girlfriend, that was the first time I'd ever acted on feelings I had. And I just remember being on the train home after seeing her and sort of just sitting thinking to myself and going, it feels so right. None of it feels wrong. None of it feels disgusting, like I've been told it is for so many years. And I just sort of sat there going, this can't be wrong because it feels so right and it feels so part of who I am. From going to representation and starting to have my views about my own identity sort of subtly changed by what I was seeing, the positive influences that the media was having on me, to actually sitting there going, yeah, okay, I've experienced this. There is absolutely nothing wrong about this at all. And I think that was, the final moment where I'd finally let go of all the internalized homophobia I've been directing towards myself. So I think everyone wants to be accepted. Everyone fears rejection. Everyone wants to have friends and a family that loves them. and would probably do pretty much anything to be accepted. I was no exception. I was prepared to sort of hide myself away to be accepted by my family and to be accepted by my church. I remember from a young age, sort of my gender expression, I found out at the age of 7, like, wasn't very feminine. I felt quite, I'd say, butch or more masculine in the way I dressed, the way I present myself. And that was not okay to my family. My family wanted me to be this kind of like perfect feminine Christian daughter, which I never really was. I think from the age of 7, that sort of instilled this kind of inadequacy in my brain from a very young age, and I had to sort of clamp down on my feelings and grow a facade and pretend to be this perfect Christian daughter that I never was. And I know it started getting really, really tiring, and I just started feeling worse and worse about myself, as it was like, well, so I can't actually be myself because that's not what they want, and to be accepted I can't be myself, therefore who I am isn't worth accepting, which I found really difficult. I think it kind of got worse when I realised I was gay, because of all the views that people had been spreading around me, all of the, gay people are wrong, gay people go against God, all of that, I sort of stored in my brain. And then when I had the realisation that I was gay myself, I sort of opened up that box of all the hateful things that had been said, not to me, not about me, but about LGBT people in general. I opened up that box and I realised, okay, so my family are never going to love me, everyone's going to hate me. And I just felt really, really terrible about myself, and like I wasn't worth loving, that if my parents ever found out, they'd reject me. And yeah, I just started getting like really tired, really depressed. I hated myself so much, and it led to me contracting like quite serious mental health issues. I was terrified everyone would leave me. I would, start to lash out. I started like hurting myself and things like that, just because, well, more reasons than feeling inadequate, but a lot of my inadequacy stemmed from the way people treated me and the way I felt rejected for who I was. And, I know I could have died at a few points in my life just because I felt so low. And I know, mental health issues have a lot of complex causes, but ultimately us as people, we are social beings. We need people around us who love us, who care for us, who accept us simply for who we are. So there's a reason why LGBT mental health is much worse than mental health of cisgender heterosexual people. It's because society intrinsically rejects us, and then that makes us fear that we're going to be rejected by our family, we're going to be rejected by our friends and by our communities, by our religious groups. And we feel so alone, and that brings you into a really, really dark place. But also through being LGBT, you can find a community of people who've been through the same things as you. And that can make you feel accepted and really build you back up from the dark place that you found yourself in previously.